So yeah, this is. Do you guys see my screen right now? It's all right.
Yep. Yeah, we see your agenda.
Perfect. So yeah, we're just going to be talking about one customer where we worked with, where they were in the same boat. They were just a quick customer success story. Then we'll be talking about one-on-one of licensing very quickly. We'll talk about enforcement, how you can stay compliant. Obviously, staying compliant comes with a much bigger bill. So how can you stay compliant at the same time optimize the license cost? And then for most of the industries, we have the compliance, not only from Microsoft point of view, but also from a separation of duty or SOX compliance. We'll talk about that a little bit. And then I don't know if I will have time to get to that last point, but I found this interesting because a lot of people thought the only option to buy the licenses is to go to Microsoft, but actually there are other ways to buy licenses as well. So I'll talk about that very quickly. Yeah, this is something we did. I'm not going to go over it. Just very quickly, we worked with one company where they had 2,000 licenses. They were at 1.5 million licenses, and we actually went on, applied some quick, I would say tricks there, and some little things, just nothing really complicated. No 6 months interview process. It was really those easy peasy techniques that we use, and then eventually we could brought them down from 1.5 million to 0.8 million. Potentially, this was not something that we fully put in place. We just went through that and say, hey, with what you have, number of users you have, number of security roles that these guys have assigned to them, you can easily bring down many of these users. Obviously, why this was not done before, because there was no enforcement. So now that there's an enforcement coming up, we did that exercise, and I'm pretty sure in organizations, what we're going to be talking about today, you could easily make a lot of gains. And I estimate any client can do between 30 to 70% saving if they use these tricks, but at the same time you want to stay compliant. So this is something that we did not a long time ago. I think it's been a month and a half since we were done with this project. But yeah, essentially we're going to be talking about this and how you can use the same techniques hopefully in your company and optimize the licenses. So one-on-one very quickly, we know we have two types of licenses in Dynamics, one group called full licenses and then the additional licenses. The only difference between the full licenses, actually the biggest difference is the cost. So a full license costs much more than an additional license. And you want to push your users as much as you can towards the non-full licenses, or Microsoft just call them additional licenses. There's also the concept for the full licenses. We also have the concept of base attach. Basically, if you have a user that needs to have access to finance module and supply chain, you don't have to pay two licenses two times 210. You basically, what you will do, you will pay 210 for the first license, and then you will pay something we call an attached supply chain license. So effectively, it's a discount Microsoft give you for that specific user. If that user has more than one license, you don't pay 2 times 210. In this case, let's say that person needs a finance and SCM. You don't have to pay 2 times 210. You pay for finance first, or for SCM first, 210, and then you'll pay an additional $30 for the attached license. By the way, all these prices are in US dollars and they are MSRP. Most of the organizations, they don't pay this price. And they're for a annual commitment. Again, if you get a monthly commitment, this price is higher. But this is for annual commitment, annual payment. And those are a lot of nuances that I normally talk about at the end of the presentation, where it's about how you can buy licenses and how you can actually pay less or pay more depending on how much commitment you're ready to make. So I think everyone knows about full licenses. I'm going to be really quick here. This table only shows how much is a base license, the MSRP price, and then how much it would be if you buy an attached license of the same type. So example, if you have a finance base license, you'll pay 210, and then if you have a let's say supply chain attached for that user, you'll pay 210 plus the $30 for the SCM one. Additional licenses. These are the licenses that are in a much lower tier in terms of pricing. They're very interesting, and there are many cases where people think they have to have a supply chain license because they're accessing the supply chain modules, or they have to have a finance license because they're accessing the finance module, but that's not the case. So right now the order they are is based on how expensive they are. HR self-service is the cheapest license, and operations activity is the most expensive. So the HR self-service is normally for employees to and managers to to enter vacation, absence and benefits. So very limited, extremely limited in what it does. But again, if you only have to have that much access, you don't need anything higher than that. You have team members. It's mostly read-only type of access. So if you have a user that only is consulting some of the screens in on D365, and they do not need to have a right access, you have to try as much as you can to push them towards a team member license. They can still do some basic right capabilities, such as if they have expenses, if they have they want to update contacts in Dynamics. They are able to do those kind of right operations, but again, those are very limited, no right accesses.
They are still they are still grandfathering in the purchase workflow approvals is like still grandfathered and included in here too. If you have people who need to, if you're using the purchase requisition or purchase or workflows and you need approvers or requesters, you can still use a Teams license for those too.
Yeah, exactly. There are a number of other use cases, but yeah, it's pretty limited.
Yeah.
But if you want to just you want to do a workflow purchase requisition, you definitely don't need to go to even an activity license, a operations activity license. Where we see the most gain is for users that are really only read-only access. And that's where we say, hey, identify those users. And we have seen a lot of cases where the person actually gets a supply chain license, which is 21 times more expensive, even more than that. A finance license is $210. Team members, again, MSRP is $8. So you're talking effectively 25 times more expensive if you get that license. If you manage to remove some of those right accesses, posting journals, creating sales orders, then you can bring down the team member. If that is not possible, the next one is operations activity. These are more task-based type of licenses, the task-based type of operations that can be performed. We're going to be talking extensively about how the operations activity works. But yeah, essentially they can do everything that team members can do. But they still do not need to have a full access across the multiple modules. So then you'll use an activity license. So that's the model it works. So basically, I'm putting here the Venn diagram. HR self-service has everything. Team members has everything that HR self-service has. Operations activity has everything that team members has plus some other things. And then the full licenses, they have everything that operations activity has plus other functionality. Just again on the just to have this in mind, how much it costs. So an HR self-service is the cheapest, $4. Then team members is $8, activity is $50, and then the rest we talked about. Then there's the second set of licenses that are more related to the device, and again, these are the users that you do not need to have it's a device that you're using on your production floor, warehouse floor, and you don't want to tie that that device to a user. So there are normally devices that are used by multiple people, and all you need to do is buy a device license and just assign it to that device. And now, regardless of who is using that, they can use the same device. They do have to have separate logins, and we have actually heard about a few errors, actually bugs, as part of the new license enforcement, even for device licenses, which were supposed to be excluded, exempted from these new license enforcement policies. Anyways, we'll talk about that in a bit. They're about $85. There was a price hike, I think, a year and a half ago, for these for the device licenses. But yeah, they're approximately about, right now MSRP is $85 per device per month. All right, so this is the old the old dates. You know, we were supposed to have a November 1st deadline imposed on all the customers, regardless of where they are, when their renewal is, pretty much regardless of when their renewal is, or any other factors. But as some of you might already know, there was an announcement today, and these dates are no longer valid. Number one, the November 1st is January 15th, 2026. So it's about a 2 months and a half push. But also now they have changed the way it's going to work. So it's not going to be imposed on all the clients at once. It's going to be a gradual rollout, basically. And how that gradual rollout works is that it depends on your renewal date. If you have a renewal date after January 2026, 30 days before that renewal date, you'll get notification in your users will get notification in D365 telling them that their user access is not compliant with Microsoft licensing policies. And then when your renewal hits, you have 15 days to actually 15 grace period dates to actually have them assign the right license. What that means, it means that you get approximately 45 days from the day you see the warning to the day when they will not be able to log in anymore, to identify those individuals and assign, purchase the license and assign it to them. Or if you already have them, you don't need to purchase them. So there's also so this is the timeline. There's also a 90 days before. That's what Microsoft recommends. So if you have, in this case, if you have an anniversary, let's say March 15, is your anniversary. Microsoft recommend you to start, prepping for your renewal at least 90 days before. So this is this initial date, and then 30 days before you're going to get the in-app notifications, and then your renewal date comes, and then eventually you have 15 more days before the license validation is going to begin. So again, for sure, these days are here, but do we recommend people waiting for the 90 days or for the 30 days? Obviously, that's definitely not recommended. The sooner I think you're compliant, the sooner you have the numbers, the better it is. With one big caveat that a lot of things are not now making sense in the user licensing reports that Microsoft are providing. So we're going to be talking about that. But yeah, generally knowing about this, following these dates, I think the first thing that every customer has to do right now is just look at their renewal dates and making sure they understand these dates when that the hard enforcement is going to be. So there are some exemptions very quickly: system admins, external users, device users, non-prod users, and service accounts. There was also a grace period for users that had renewed their license between April and September, but I mean, that doesn't make sense with the recent announcement. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm just going to go a little bit quicker on some of the slides, if you don't mind. You can always stop me if you have any questions. So we're going to talk about very quickly how you can stay compliant. We put together a high level, steps, what you have to do, what tools you have to use to stay compliant. And this is according to Microsoft and the Microsoft recommended tools that are not free of box today. There are a lot of things that are still being, updated by Microsoft. But essentially, what you have to use is that number one thing, you go to your PPAC or license or LCS license usage report, you can identify individuals that are not having the right license. And you have to do, you have to act on them and add them whatever license they need, or change their license to a new one to make sure they're covered. So you go user by user. If they don't have the right license, they need an SCM. Do you already have that SCM license? You have inventory of SCM licenses or finance licenses. That is great. Then you can go to Microsoft Admin Center. You can assign it to them. If you don't have enough licenses, obviously you have to go buy them. That depends how you're buying them. If you go to Microsoft, a CSP, regardless, you buy the license. Once they show up in your Microsoft Admin Center, then you can assign them to users, and then you're compliant for that user. So this is at a very high level. What we recommend that has to be followed. And I'm gonna, in the next few slides, I'm gonna talk about a little bit about these tools. So the first one is PPAC. Most of you have already probably been in Power Platform Admin Center. PPAC, essentially when you land there, you have to go to Licensing and Finance and Operations tab. You will see information about your licenses here. So in this case, it has a little warning sign here that says you have 42 licenses that are missing from your users. Again, these are all in preview, so they are prone to errors, and they're not yet GA from Microsoft. Underneath here, you see a little bit of a breakdown. So you could see that how many licenses you have: base licenses, which is the full licenses, and also the attached ones that are there. So that gives you a little bit of a preview. You can do also the same thing in else. You could get more information about those users just by clicking on that tile there. You'll get a per user report where it will tell you which of your users are missing the licenses. Again, really nothing complicated. I'm just going to skip over this. This is the Microsoft Admin Center where you do the assignment of license to users. Again, really nothing complicated. You go to your users, you pick the user that you need, and then you pick the licenses and you hit the save button. So nothing crazy there. The same type of reports you get in PPAC, you get in LCS. I'm gonna go very quickly. So yeah, as you can see here, this is the same title that we got on the other screen, 42 users without licenses. You click on that, you get a per user report, and then you can see the warning signs where you're lacking the proper license for the user. Now let's talk about all the bugs lately. So there have been a lot of things that users have observed and they reported to Microsoft, and that has been greatly the cause why Microsoft are pushing the dates. One of the big ones that I've heard, and we were just actually talking about it with Dan and the guys, was Microsoft ISV updates that are affecting the reports. So you went through the exercise, you made everyone compliant, then you have a new quality update or a new version, and then boom, everything is gone. You pop up, you see a lot of new licenses required for some users, even though you made sure you were 100% compliant. So that is a huge risk, not only now but even in the future, because your D365 environment gets updated by Microsoft with the version updates, by ISVs obviously because they also have different versions, as well as by yourself. So every time you're pushing something, there's a potential that you're going to change the licenses. So as part of your testing in your sandbox or in your dev environment, you got to make sure that you capture if those changes affected the licenses, which is again not among all the other tests that you have to do. You have to also account for that. And imagine you finally find out that you need 5 more finance licenses. Well, the lead time to get a license purchased from Microsoft, get the budget, approved from, your finance team, get it from Microsoft, have it pop up in your admin center, Microsoft Admin Center. That's a long time to get all that, info in place. So that's a big problem right now. There are a lot of inconsistencies between license role assignment in USG and in PPAC. essentially PPAC is not reflecting same information as USG. And then there were a bunch of other ones that, again, I don't want to go through. I can share these slides if you need it. Was there any questions? Someone I can.
I think you're hitting a key point there, though, Mo. I don't see any questions, but again, it just means I think we're going to have to pay attention more that, I'd see a proactive update coming. I probably didn't worry about is make sure that, I seen what was being pushed in, but those changes may potentially also be causing license updates also, you say, because they're pushing in changes, and there was no warning, there was no alert, but I experienced that where I had users after the last proactive update change.
Mm-hmm.
I happened to go out and take a look and see it. By coincidence, I was assigning a license for their users. What happened? That's when I seen it, which I guess is gonna. It wasn't until then that I really realized it happened. Anyway.
Yeah, and I think if there was some sort of a grace period, so even if it happens, then Microsoft gives you, they're going to give you 60 days or 90 days of grace period after the update. That will make a little bit of sense. But then the fact that Microsoft can arbitrarily just upgrade users, is as if you have no control anymore on on the budget for the licenses, because Microsoft could just bump it up anytime they want, because the proactive updates now, there's no schedule, right? They just push them pretty much a few times per year. So it's actually a huge risk, and I hope Microsoft they come up with a solution that makes sense. So I think I already used up all the time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go over one more slide, and this one, how you can optimize the licenses. And obviously, Microsoft, they are enforcing the dates, but they do provide some tools available. Specifically, all the tools that came with USG are very interesting. You can actually detect your inactive users in D365. There's a report. The other thing that we always recommend to our users is that do not treat out-of-the-box roles as a template. Don't think that if you take something and you just customize it, it's gonna work, and then it's license optimized and cost optimized. Most of the time, it's not the case. So Microsoft have actually provided some tools to create the licenses from scratch, which again, I haven't heard great feedback on those tools. But yeah, we do not recommend that, we just, the customers, they take one out of the box role, just copy it and assign things and say, okay, I think I'm good to go because I use an out of the box role. Is not the case. And then obviously, what more thing you can do is that you can look at your users and what their needs are. And then, you can always try to see how you can remove the security roles that they don't need, or remove the duties that they don't need, or remove the security privileges that they don't need, right? One more thing you can do, you can make them read only, and that's a little bit of a trick that we have applied in a number of implementations, where people say I need access, but most of the time they really need a read only access. If they do, that's actually a huge game changer, because if someone needs only read only, they can go down to a team member. So that's definitely something that we recommend. Finally,
we've got a question from Christina.
Sure.
Oh yeah. So if a user has a finance license and it's assigned to them, however, they have supply chain security roles, are they just not able to access that within the application, or does that mean that they won't be able to log in at all? Because I've heard both sides to it and not a definitive.
Yeah, very good question, Christina. Actually, we just talked about that right before I think you joined. No, it's a 0-1 logic. So if you don't have the right license, you will not be able to access the system at all. And that is bad, and I think it's very bad. It doesn't make sense. It would actually make sense that when you log in, you only see things that you're entitled to. But today, the way it is that it's all or nothing.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. And many applications is not the case, but yeah, in this case, Microsoft, they have a hard time implementing this. They haven't got that far to say, hey, no, now we are going to make it not 0-1 and more like based on what you have, but you're still able to log in. That just drastically reduces the cost because, you can do everything else, but you cannot do that little bit of, I don't know, updating a purchase order. But then you can ask your colleague, right, to do it. But right now you cannot do literally nothing just because you're missing one entitlement in all the, the security roles that you have. I'm gonna wrap it up. Honestly, there's a lot more information on these slides, and normally this is a 1 hour thing that we do. But yeah, if you guys need anything, I can definitely look on using the sharing these slides with you. One last point I would like to mention: you could use telemetry data to actually gauge how users are navigating. How users are moving in the system. How many screens they're actually visiting. And we have used that for in a number of cases to actually find out if I'm giving a user 100 different pages, access to 100 different pages, how many of them they actually go on based on the, actual telemetry data that you can easily now gather with a new feature that Microsoft introduced back in version, I think 38 or 39. So that is the last point that I would like to mention. Obviously, SOX compliance, you have that consideration always. For most industry, that's a must. For some, it's a nice to have, but yeah, you always want to make sure that you stay compliant with that. Finally, I just want to talk about this portion. When you want to buy licenses, you have two options. It's not only from Microsoft you can buy it. Actually, Microsoft are going to stop selling EA agreements to the customers under, I think, $1 million worth of licensing. I don't have the exact number in my mind, but yeah. So most of the customers for F&O right now, they are in EAs just because there are no big size type of contracts. But the smaller one, Microsoft are actually want to push them towards the partners and or CSP. So you always have the option to buy directly from Microsoft or CSP. One use case, interesting story I have is that one of our clients actually was with EA, with Microsoft directly. They switched to a CSP and they got a much better pricing with CSP, as surprising as it is, because CSPs eventually also buy from Microsoft, but they actually managed to sell the licenses at a much deeper discount than Microsoft themselves. So yeah, there are advantages and disadvantages going with EAs and CSPs. They're all in these slides.
I see James has his hand up there too.
Sure.
Yeah, Mo, quick question for you. So on the telemetry information, a couple of slides ago that you were talking about, I've heard folks using that to be able to kind of report on the analytics behind what menu items users are actually selecting. But I've heard that there's some limitations on like what menu items are even reported. Are you aware of any limitations like menu, like display versus action versus like forgetting the third menu item name?
Correct. Yeah, there are limitations, and I heard that this is just the initial rollout, and it's going to get enriched in the future. But yeah, so one thing that you do not get is that what they did on that page. So let's say someone went on a sales order. If they edit the page, it's not easy to find if they actually went in and edited the page, or they went to a different, let's say they clicked on that one of the lines on that and it was just a pop-up window, right? So stuff like that, you don't get so much insight into them. But still you can see where they went. So if you see someone that never went to any of these finance modules, why they're needing a finance license, right? So yeah, it's not perfect. Is definitely, there's stuff like, I think you mainly get the display menu items. You don't get the other ones. And also you don't get to see if someone was actually editing something or they just went on and looked at something, a read only. But I heard those changes are coming.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Mo.
No problem.
Back to your conversation about how you get your licenses, Mo, via the EA agreement or CSP, right? So another thing that I learned early on, so we get our licenses when we went live, they got them through SHI, which I'm sure a lot of people do because we get our office licenses and other things. So I went back to them because as I was looking at the licenses, I was trying to like, hey, can we, with changes coming, can I kind of reorganize, even though my agreement was in April. Without getting too far down the weeds, I think when it comes to your licensing, yeah, I think again here, they weren't willing to be flexible to change it, but I think some of that also maybe comes back to them not being flexible on willing to work with us to help us organize some of that, or discounts. I think there's a difference there. You may not be able to change it immediately, but you may want to look at in the future, because I certainly would like to change some of my licenses and have some flexibility and stuff. And who I'm with now was not willing to really do anything to help us between now and April, or have those discussions till we got closer. So I don't know if it really makes a difference. I can't speak to it. I'm not that far down the weeds, but it's a little frustrating because we're paying for some extra licenses probably that we're committed to now that we don't need or would have done differently. Have we done our evaluation again, to your point? Make sure you're evaluating ahead of time, 90 days at least, to know what you really need to ask for.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And one thing I recommend to all clients is that don't think you're only stuck with Microsoft when you buy licenses. Not that, CSPs are always better in pricing. It gives you leverage to negotiate. So when you go to Microsoft, say, hey, and normally Microsoft provides somewhere between 25 to 35% discount normally, and it depends on many other things. If you bundle them with M365, with Azure storage, stuff like that, you definitely get better pricing. But normally you're in that range. We had one customer say, oh, you know what, I'm going to go with these guys. And these other guys that they bought it from was a CSP. They were selling them another tool. And they actually did a bundling for the licensing of that other tool and Microsoft 365 and Dynamics 365 licenses. Eventually it came much cheaper to go with the CSP. And then it was interesting, Microsoft, they started, offering more. So they were like, oh, 35% is not, we could do more. And it was interesting how the tone changed on the Microsoft side when they knew that, the customer is going to go with the CSP. They were a big size customer. So the Microsoft sales team, they were really keen to offer them, as much as they could. Eventually they didn't even like how Microsoft treated them, and they went with the CSP. So yeah, even though they're not, in this case, it was as a good thing to go with the CSP. Even if you think you better stay with Microsoft, in your negotiation, I think it helped to say, hey, I have an alternative, and for X reason, the CSP might actually give me much more interesting pricing than you guys. So yeah, I definitely recommend to our clients to consider CSPs. One more thing that's interesting about CSPs is that they also provide you, premium support, because most of the time they are partners who have, expertise in house for, consulting services, any other support that you need. So they sometimes give you a very interesting package. With that being said, I would like to thank everyone. I pretty much done these slides.
So, and if you don't mind, I'll sharing that slide deck. I'll send out to folks. They want to look through the rest of it there, and it has probably some details on the optimizer tool, which they may be interested in. I know it's
yeah, definitely
more details. And so I can share your contact info too. Follow up if you want to get more details on that tool as well.
Yeah, I'm available on LinkedIn, but yeah, if anyone has any questions or you want to go a little bit deeper, yeah, feel free to reach out to me, and then I can send you also the slides.
So I already know, Daniel, where you're at on this, but I have, as shown when Mo came on, and Daniel, that we have indeed ourselves tried to get our licenses assigned. In fact, on September 1, I was happy I had everything assigned, and as already indicated, we had a proactive update come in, and all of a sudden now I have 20 users whose licenses changed magically overnight. And so I haven't gotten back into digging into what caused that to happen, and figure out again, is it, again, I need to determine, and I encourage you to report issues too. I've tried to, report things as well. If something changes to Microsoft, is it the algorithm, or is it really something that it's getting trued up? It's just hard to know right now.
Experienced the same issue where the licensing change. I think it was related to PO approvals, but they were previously told they were team members, and then they moved up. So we're digging in the details as well.
I know
it was a bug, and it was fixed recently. It was a bug from Microsoft, that the license for the purchase order approval was, I don't know, upgraded to project operation. But Microsoft fixed that, and now when I check it in the environment, I see that it's a game team member.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know.
Yeah, it had, there's one that they have, there's a couple of things down there. It should be though. I've had to play around, but yes, my team licenses for those approvals I've been able to keep there. But yeah, I do. It was definitely a bug. I think that did get resolved there. I'm now having some problem with my approvers. Actually, I think it's because of a role. We have a custom role that we built for the purchase order approvers that has a maintain privilege in there that in the past wasn't an issue, but now is. Maybe a little different topic, Mo, but I think maybe I kind of use a plus. But when I used to go and run the old license and reports, if I had deactivated a user but still hadn't removed like rules, I could still see them show up, and it caused some headaches trying to keep track of stuff. Whereas it does appear now, at least a new process. I mean, when you deactivate a user, that in essence they don't show up on licensing reports. It's not digging back in of having removed rules and things like that, which is a little easier to manage from that standpoint.
Yeah, definitely. I'm interested to see how your case is. If you want, we can take a few minutes. Not tomorrow because I'm out, but
yeah,
I would like to know a little bit more in details if you want.
Sure. But good to know that they've extended the time period. We'll see where it lands at here with it long term, but yeah.
I hope they get the changes, in public in general available mode as soon as possible, because right now there's everywhere you go it says preview. So I think that's a prereq. So until and unless they don't do that, it doesn't make any sense to even talk about dates, right? Because how do you want customers to go and spend hours and hours trying to digging into potentially hundreds of users when there's no reliable reporting? It really is not a good customer treatment from Microsoft, I think. But anyways, it is what it is. So
yeah. Anyone else have any experience, things they want to share with their licensing experience?
We've been able to manage it pretty well from our side. However, it's just the constant changes and trying to keep up with it every day. It seems like there's something else, and then we've got to backtrack and figure out what it is. So I don't know if anybody's heard like a drop dead date of these are the last changes.
No,
Nope.
I can say.
Yeah, that was my favorite. We were going through and even had our consultants helping us with it, and we would log into PPAC. And I mean, our consultant was just in PPAC like that morning, and we had like an 11 o'clock meeting, and the report I pulled was totally different, like different columns, things were removed.
Yep.
So yeah, and this is, like a month ago, 2 months ago, but yeah, it just always was, very difficult to get reliable information. So it's much better now already, but I agree, Mo. Like, if things are still literally marked with the word preview on it, then like, how can you use that to base your licensing decisions? So, yeah.
You bring up another point there again, just the refresh rate of those reports. Like you go and you make changes, it isn't like instantly. You kind of have to. They make changes, and then I come back and just check it later. I'm not going to like wait for it. I don't know what the refresh rate on that polling is, but it's not instantaneous.
Yeah. Well, the other problem, as I think Christina also you pointed out, is the fact that it's a 0-1. That is, if they make it a partial, user blocking, that's much better. That's extremely, much more relief on the users. The problem is that they actually picked they put a gate, and that gate is when you're going to enter the building. It's not on every apartment. So basically, if you have the key to the building, you cannot get into any apartment. Whereas if everyone had a key to different keys to different apartments, then you could please enter into the building, go to some of these rooms, and potentially not some others because you don't have the access. But you will not be totally blocked and then totally, you stay idle. Many users could literally be idle because now they cannot even get in. And even if they update things, it's going to take 24 hours. So even it's instantaneous, it was better. But if you deploy a package, let's say, hey, undo what you did, deploy another the previous package because it's a mess. It's going to take 24 hours before these changes reflect. And now Microsoft said that the verification logic is going to be instantaneous. It's just the reports, but I don't know if that's going to be taking place. So yeah, that is the part that is really concerning to me.
Yep.
Good questions, good conversations. You say, Snow, you're not alone out there. Yeah, we're all trying to figure it out. And again, the timing of this today was again knowing that we thought November 1st, but now I've got a little more breathing room here. We see what happens in the process there. I know I was going to do I only scheduled an hour today. I think I'll reschedule my budget presentation just because I got like 10 minutes left. Want to take a couple minutes to see if anyone had any suggestions or recommendations for future topics. Well, is anyone going? I mean, are you going to Summit, Christina? Or
unfortunately, I'm not going to make it. I did have a question. If anybody has started to look at some of the add-ins for automating the licensing, like Executive Automats or maybe other partners that have it.
The USG, you mean?
For assigning the licenses. I know they have a tool. From my perspective, it was a little pricey, but I didn't know if there was others out there.
From my experience, I think there's FastPath, but FastPath is extremely expensive. One customer is using it, and they're only using one module. If I'm not mistaken, they're paying under $20,000. I could be wrong, but they always say it's very expensive. There's also Executive Automate. They do have some tooling. What I heard is that the USG module was actually bought from Executive Automate, the ISV. I didn't get any confirmation, but someone told me about it. So
yeah, I heard the same. And we use FastPath, but we use it more for the auditing side and security role reviews we have to do for our audits.
Yeah, the big problem with FastPath is just the price tag that comes with it. It's
yeah.
Mhm.
Again, not trying to up again. I know talking to Alex Meyer. They've developed you say telemetry data that they're leveraging it right, but they have a tool that can again kind of help you provide some guidance decisions and make recommendations too. I know it takes it to that level, but I'm not sure if Microsoft will eventually develop it to that point or not. But it looked pretty slick what it could do. But it was again a service. They were like, when I was talking to them, like you could add it for a year, so you could help figure out and get to what you're trying to do. So
we have also developed an internal tool. If you like, Christina, I could share it with you. It basically does the same thing. It uses telemetry data, and then it potentially gives you where you're paying the most. We have developed some internal tools. Those are mainly like some are in Excel and some are in SQL. If you like, I could take maybe half an hour. I can show it to you how we did it for those customers that we work for.
That'd be great.
But yeah,
thank you.
no problem. If you want, we can talk later. But yeah, the two main ones, the commercial ones, which come with an expensive price tag, is one's Executive Automate and the other one is FastPath. But even those, they have a hard time, catching up with all these changes, right?
We have noticed that just recently with FastPath. So we're applying a package to hopefully see it reflect what the changes are.
I guess really my question, Christine, I was looking at the calendar here for a meeting here in October, and it sounds like, I'm sure, while you probably partners are going to be there, but I'm not going to be at Summit. Maybe we look at the end of the month after Summit, after the 23rd, but before the end of the month, to slate an October meeting and see if get something going here.
Mhm. Yeah, sure. And one last point from my side. Sorry, we are gonna have a recurring license compliance meeting. It's gonna be with Steve Goodman. Alex is gonna be part of that. Myself, Steve, and we're gonna have guest speakers from Microsoft. It's gonna be probably a recurring every month session. The first one is planned for the second week of October. And then it's going to be going on every month until things stabilize on the licensing side. So yeah, stay tuned for that. I can share the information when we have the date, but it will be also announced by Doug. It is actually hosted and moderated by Bobby and the Doug team.
Cool. That's a good idea. That'll be nice.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Anyone
we're
in-
thinking of having guest speakers like
Yeah.
Alex, Ian from Microsoft, and a few other folks. So we keep the community updated with all the changes.
I'll try to make sure. I'm guessing Bobby may go ahead and post it in all the groups. but
Yeah.
I'll make
Yeah,
sure it
yeah,
gets.
yeah.
I'll make sure it gets posted in our
Yep.
group if it doesn't
Yeah.
get shared down. I'm sure it'll share it with us.
In the next few days, it will be published. Yeah.